Assalamualaikum and welcome to lesson 8 of my video presentation on problem-based learning. In this lesson, we are going to explore the topic of the characteristics of problem-based learning. Discussion on this topic is very essential for us to get closer to a proper understanding of what is PBL and the main features that form the foundation of this approach. In late August 2020, I Googled for case-based learning and found 2.46 billion search results. And then I typed project-based learning and found 2.38 billion. But when I typed problem-based learning, I have found 2.63 billion search results. This alone represents how extensive and well documented PBL in web pages and online database as compared to other inquiry-based learning approaches. The extensive database of PBL, however, does not guarantee a single accepted definition of PBL. Since its early inception in the late 60s, many had attempted to define a comprehensive concept of problem-based learning. However, PBL, according to DeGraaf and Kolmos, was first and foremost developed on the basis of practice or application, and therefore attempts to propose a comprehensive concept and clear-cut definition is certainly not an easy job. Its pioneer, Howard Barrows, once defines PBL as a student-centered, taking place in a small groups with the teacher acting as a facilitator and being organized around problems. This definition, however, represents only the applied features of PBL, not a comprehensive form. It does not address the theoretical features or educational philosophical aspects of the approach. By 1990s, others begin to look into the theoretical principle or educational philosophical background of PBL. Geisler's 1996, for instance, attempted to define PBL in relation to theoretical learning principles, such as learning as the construction of knowledge, meta-learning, and contextual learning. But still, there is no comprehensive definition that covers the application of educational models as well as the theoretical features of PBL. PBL practitioners in general tend to look into the most common definition of PBL in its relation to the specific educational models based on PBL principles such as proposed by Barrows. It was from this point PBL had been perceived. There was also another perspective of looking at PBL, which is to look at different practices within the guidelines of traditional educational models. This, however, could bring broader or even contradicting concepts about PBL. In the last 2 decades, this issue was already discussed among PBL experts and scholars. The term PBL was employed to feature a learning approach where the learners working with problems. However, according to Barrows and Linda, many, despite being labeled PBL, do not resemble PBL, and there is a range of approaches in between. And Barrows and Linda therefore propose the term APBL or authentic problem-based learning to reflect two main characteristics of PBL. One is an authentic education, and two is a problem as a stimulus. PBL as an authentic education requires learners to go through the same activities during learning that are valued in the workplace and the real world. As a base for learning, problems serve as a stimulus for learning and a focus for organizing knowledge. The problem should be based on real life or real world problems. As the basis for the learning process, the problem determines the direction of the learning process and emphasizes the formulation of a question rather than on the answer. And this is also allows the learning content to be related to the context, which promotes student motivation and comprehension. These two main characteristics are essentially the backbone of the PBL concept and could be the main guidelines for understanding other key characteristics of PBL, including 3 self-directed, 4 experience-based, 5 activity-based, and 6 interdisciplinary, and 7 group-based. The self-directed feature of PBL allows the freedom of learning, participant-directed learning processes or self-directed learning, which has a far more individual-oriented focus. In the vast majority of cases, students have the opportunity to determine their own learning direction, including formulating and defining the problem within the given subject area guidelines. In other cases, the teacher defines a problem and the student uses this as a starting point. As experience-based learning or experiential learning approach, PBL builds students a self-directed learning from their own experiences and interests. By connecting the formulation of the problem to the individual's world of experience increases motivation because it relates to the opinions and understandings previously formed by the students. PBL is focusing on activity and the process of learning rather than the content. Activity-based requires students to participate actively in the brainstorming and inquiry process, researching, reasoning, decision-making as well as reflecting. And this can motivate and allow the students to acquire lifelong learning skills. Interdisciplinary learning in PBL relates to problem orientation and participant-directed processes, including the inquiry, self-directed learning, and the problem solving. The solution of the problem can extend beyond traditional subject-related boundaries and method. PBL as group-based learning. Personal competencies are developed through the process of group cooperation in all its stages. The group learning is not only about working in a team to solve the problem, but also experiencing social and psychological interaction, empathy, and appreciation. Review of many other literatures had also found more essential characteristics of PBL, including a student-centered, inductive rather than deductive, teacher as a facilitator, self-reflective, collaborative, and interdependent, builds on or challenges a prior learning, context-specific, and creates a cognitive conflict. Student-centered refers to learning opportunities that are relevant to the students, the goals of which are at least partly determined by the students themselves. In the process, they actively create their own knowledge. PBL is more inductive. Students learn the content as they try to address a problem. The problems in PBL are typically in the form of cases, narratives of complex real-world challenges common to the discipline being studied. And there is no right or wrong answer. Rather, there are reasonable solutions based on the application of knowledge and skills deemed necessary to address the issue. Teachers are facilitators who help and support reasoning processes, facilitate group processes and interpersonal dynamics, and never interject content or provide direct answers to questions. They are not passive during students' learning, but neither does take the traditional role of a sage on the stage. Their role can be modeled to different kinds of problem-solving strategies, and sometimes referred to as cognitive apprenticeship learning. Self-reflective. The learners monitor their understanding and learn to adjust strategies for learning. Reflection or metacognition strengthens the learning mastery and develops a lifelong learning skills better. And reflective learning is a form of self-assessment, and it could also increase self-awareness and encourages active engagement in the learning process as a whole. Collaborative and interdependent. By collaborating, students see other kinds of problem-solving strategies being used. They discuss the case using their collective information and they need to take responsibility for their own learning as well as their classmates. Students also can model one another in a variety of problem-solving strategies. This is a form of interdependent learning and co-teaching. Builds on or challenges prior learning. If the case has some relevance to students, then they are required to recall on what they already know or think they know. By focusing on their prior learning, students can test assumptions, prior learning strategies, and facts. The literature suggests that learning takes place when there is a conflict between prior learning and new information. Context specific. The context for learning in PBL is highly context specific. It serves to teach content by presenting the students with a real-world challenge, similar to one they might encounter where where they are a practitioner in the discipline. Context-specific information tend to be learned at a deeper level and retained longer. And finally, PBL creates cognitive conflict. While the solution may address one part of a problem, it may create another problem. It challenges prior learning and creates a cognitive conflict. And as a result, students will develop a new perspective on the problem as well as their previous learning. The literature suggests that learning takes place when there is a conflict between prior learning and new information. These are some of the essential characteristics of PBL. Researchers had also explored deeper into these characteristics and proposed many other interrelated characteristics to explain the distinctive feature of PBL as compared to other learning approaches. These distinctive characteristics are highly regarded by PBL proponents, but in the eyes of the opponents, some are not well accepted and had even criticized. For instance, the characteristic of a student-centered and self-directed learning were criticized because a student could not know what might be important for them to learn, especially in areas where they have no prior knowledge and experience. Teachers, as they said, could not easily control the learning direction and ensure the achievement of the learning outcomes. And too much focus on the problem as the main source of learning and the problem solving as the learning process could also jeopardize the content mastery, they argued. I believe for now it could be sufficient for us to know these 15 distinctive characteristics and understand what PBL is. Based on my own experience, we can only have a better understanding and appreciation once we personally implement and experience PBL on site. I hope this brief explanation could be able to inspire you to embark on PBL exploration as a practitioner. Thank you very much for your time and kind attention to my presentation. And viewers who are new here, please subscribe to my channel so you will get more notification on my upcoming videos. And don't forget to like and share this video. And if you have something to share, please leave the comment below. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.